So let's talk about SummerSlam night one. I want to talk about my thoughts. I want to talk to you about why I'm thinking the way I'm thinking. I want to talk to you about each fight individually, and I'm going to grade them. So let's jump straight into it. So for SummerSlam night one, we started everything off, all of SummerSlam off with Roman and Jay versus Braun and Bronson. And if I'm honest with you, I understand why they did this. Kind of got people involved. Jay Uso kicked off, the entrance, kicked off the weekend. And I get it. It is what it is. However, I don't necessarily like that we got Roman Reigns back in a tag match with Jey Uso and the Bronze. Simple as that. That's kind of like my complaint about that match. I was hoping that we'd get Roman in something bigger. And then with Seth Rollins being out, it kind of obviously, that tainted some things as well. Because at the time, we didn't know that Seth Rollins was going to come back and, do what he did. So I thought it was a good match overall. I didn't necessarily like the story behind it. It kind of just felt like Jay was getting beat up and Roman comes out of nowhere, saves the day, and then we get a tag match and then boom. Right? So because of that, great match. It kicked off the weekend. I don't have any feelings towards it, honestly. If I didn't have a list, I probably would have forgot about the match as a whole. And so because of that, I got to give this match probably a 7 out of 10. I think that's fair, right? To start off, 7 out of 10. Great fight. Very minimal story. Great wrestlers, but if the fight never happened, I wouldn't really care. You know what I mean? So we'll start there. 7 out of 10. Number 2, we got Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss versus the Judgment Day. And kind of like the first match, I understand why we had this fight, but at the same time, I wish that they did a better job of explaining it for the person who's never seen WWE before. Like, there was no reason for them to fight other than the titles. They're not on the same brand. They've never really interacted other than, I think there was like that 8-man tag match that happened, there was some kind of tag match that happened a few weeks ago or last week or something. But there's no story there. It's kind of just like, they have the title, they won the title, put them together. And I don't really know how I feel about that. I'm not a big fan of having fights with no story, because for me, the reason I watch wrestling is for the stories. And so maybe I'm giving this too much credit, but that's just how I feel. Now, the two teams separately are great stories. And so that's why I'm going to rate this a little bit higher. Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, the story that they have right now going with them kind of being friends, not being friends, kind of being friends, not being friends, not saying it, but whatever. I think it's so cool. I think it's creative. I think it's clever. I like it a lot. Raquel and Roxanne also kind of similar, right? They like each other, but they don't like each other, but they kind of do because they have to, because of the Judgment Day, because Liv's gone, all that stuff. And also I'm excited to see where that story goes with Liv coming back, whenever she gets back. And so the stories individually are what make this good, in my opinion. However, the fight itself didn't really make sense. And so for that reason, I'm going to give this a 7.5 because the stories individually are great. The fighting was great. The Alexa hitting Charlotte by accident, and then Charlotte acting like she was gonna looking at her like, I'm gonna knock you out, get revenge, but then turning and hitting Raquel instead. Also awesome. The storytelling in the match was awesome as well. And so for that reason, I'll give it a 7.5. I think it was better than the Roman fight. The only thing about the Roman fight that was actually good, in my opinion, was that Roman Reigns was in it. Um, um, so I haven't been feeling the best, but for that reason, 7.5. Right, let's move on. Number 3, Jade versus Tiffany. For me, this was the worst match of night 1. Um, Jade versus Tiffany, I thought could have been a lot better. I think the ending could have been a lot better. I think that the winner should have been Jade. Not because I like Jade more, not because I like Tiffany more, or not because I like Jade less, or not because I like Tiffany less. Simply because over the last 18 months, they've built Jade up to be like a superhero. Like, they call her Storm. She's only got pinned one time. She's never lost a singles match. She just won Queen of the Ring. She just got taken out by Naomi, and they went through that whole thing, and she came back and she destroyed Naomi. How could she not win? And so for that reason, I was kind of pissed off about that, because the storytelling showed that, man, Jade's going through all this stuff because she's going to win the title. Where on the other hand, you got Tiffany Stratton, who there's not really a story anywhere. She's just beating people, and it's not making any sense to me, right? So we had Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania, which, cool, I get it. Like, they needed her to fight somebody after winning Money in the Bank and, cashing in and, doing that whole thing, which, cool, whatever. She fought Charlotte and she won clean, which I was a little skeptical at that point. Like, I don't think she should have won that clean. I think they should have had her as the heel. But people obviously hated Charlotte more, and so, it is what it is. So I kind of went with it. And then she goes ghost for a few weeks. They're doing some stuff with Jade in the background. And then Tiffany Stratton pops up. Trish Stratus pops up for Evolution a week or 2 weeks in advance for no reason. She's like, I'm going to give you a title shot over Jade, who just won Queen of the Ring, which, whatever. And she beats freaking Trish Stratus. Fair and square, clean. And so my brain's like, why is this person who's 18 months into the main roster beating two of the greatest of all time within weeks of each other, right? Okay. But I get over it. And so we go to where we are now. And again, you have this superhero in Jade Cargill, who is supposed to be demolishing everybody, and this, there's this phenom, this force. And she loses. She gets destroyed basically by Tiffany. And it's just not making any sense. The story doesn't make any sense. And so this is one of my, the Tiffany Stratton thing is it's really frustrating to me, because it's probably one of the only stories in WWE right now where it's just kind of like, what are we doing? Why is she winning everything clean? And so there's also, in the fight, there's a lot of botches. There's a lot of just stuff that it just, I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of it. It's also one of those matches, kind of like Roman and Jay versus the Bronze, where you don't really remember it. Like, if it never happened, you wouldn't really care. And it's probably because the story was just non-existent, right? And so for that reason, I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10, because the match wasn't good. There's a lot of botches, and the story was absolute tragic. And so 6 out of 10. I should go to 5. I'm just going to 6. All right. Karrion Kross versus Sami Zayn. This right here was one of my favorite stories in all of WWE, honestly, before night 1. I actually enjoyed both Sami Zayn and Karrion Kross. However, just like Jade Cargill versus Tiffany Stratton, this match made everything we've built up feel pointless. I thought that we would see some type of progression from at SummerSlam. I thought that at least Sami Zayn would start to hint at maybe turning heel. It kind of made Karrion Kross feel powerless, like as if the pipe didn't mean anything, the conversations don't mean anything. all this stuff kind of feels like it doesn't even matter anymore. And it just felt like another match between them two. This is a third match between those two where I think he should have lost when they were in Saudi Arabia, but he didn't. He won. And then Karrion Kross had to win by using a pipe. You know, if those two guys fought in real life, there's no way Sami Zayn wins that match clean. No way, no how. It wouldn't happen, right? And so for him to do it, for him to win clean twice over Karrion Kross, and Karrion Kross have to cheat in order to win, it just doesn't make any sense. And then to build up this huge moment at SummerSlam to where we think something's actually going to happen, and for nothing to actually happen, is really frustrating. And so, again, I'm a huge story guy. Because the story is so weird for this one, I'm definitely going to dock some points. The match itself was good, though. The fighting, the storytelling within the match, although I didn't agree with the story that was being told. Scarlett added a whole different dynamic to that, having the pipe there. Because of those reasons, I think I'm going to give it a little bit higher, but overall, the story really docked it for me. So I'm going to give this fight also a 7.5 out of 10. So there we go. Number 5, Logan and Drew versus Randy and Jelly Roll. Now, if I'm honest with you, I didn't expect this fight to be good. This is one of those matches where I was not excited for it by any means. I didn't want to watch it. I wasn't interested in the story. I didn't have any type of like pull towards it. I didn't care about any of the, the late talk show things that they were doing. I wasn't really interested in it at all until Friday Night SmackDown, when Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre attacked Jelly Roll at the facility while he was training or whatever, right? That was the first time I was like, oh, this might actually be pretty funny. And I called them the wife beater boys. So that was when I was like, okay, this might actually be pretty good. And so, again, this is kind of one of those situations where the story kind of came out of nowhere. There was no real reason for the story, other than just kind of like needing somebody at SummerSlam and needing Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton. And so the story, not my favorite, but the match itself was awesome. I gotta say, the match itself was awesome. But when I think about the match itself, it was awesome because of Logan Paul. I can't say that if you replaced all 3 superstars with someone else, that the match would have been any better or worse. Because all you remember is Logan Paul in that match. The frog splash, the like, any of it. Like, I guess you kind of remember Jelly Roll because of that whole moment he had with him, about to go backstage and then pulling back in. But Logan Paul was the reason that was a good match, in my opinion. And so for this one, because there was no mess ups, because the acting was so good from Jelly Roll, because Logan Paul did fantastic. However, the story was kind of I'm gonna give this one an 8 out of 10. I'm gonna give this one an 8 out of 10 because although the story, they didn't have much time to do the story made sense. The fighting made sense. The match made sense. There was really high moments in the match. And they didn't just let Jelly Roll win. And I love that. I love that the ending was still the ending. I love that, Logan Paul had his big moments. He's big, moments that he always has. I thought it was great. I thought that it was great that those moments were on Jelly Roll too. And so definitely 8 out of 10 for sure. And last but not least, number 6, CM Punk versus Gunther. This right here was my favorite match of the entire weekend. The entire weekend. I thought this was fantastic. If I'm honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of the story, like the build up to get to SummerSlam. Like, it was good. Don't get me wrong. Like, their segments were pretty good. I do wish they did a little bit more to make us like think that they hated each other a little bit more. But honestly, WWE as a whole hasn't really been doing that lately. And so, you know, it is what it is. And so, coming into SummerSlam, I didn't really have the highest hopes for this match. I kind of thought it was just going to be, you know, another CM Punk match where he wins and then, you know, whatever. Or another Gunther match where he does the same thing he did with Jey Uso, same thing he did with Goldberg. And I was kind of like, you know, I'm excited about it, but I don't really care. But they both over-delivered. They both exceeded expectations and over-delivered 1,000%. I love the story that was told. I love that we saw Gunther be a better wrestler than CM Punk. I mean, to the point where CM Punk got destroyed by Gunther. Like, I love that CM Punk let Gunther be the better fighter. I thought that was amazing. I thought it was awesome. The chops, the simplicity of the match. There's not all this flashiness going around. They're not jumping off the top rope and flipping and doing this and that. It wasn't fast paced. It was a very slow match. But it was a brutal match and it was intentional. And they never missed a beat. Every moment felt purposeful. And I love that. That's one of my favorite things about a match. Like, I want to feel like I can't look away from the screen because you might do something that is a part of the story. And both Gunther and CM Punk did that in this match. Now, obviously, we had CM Punk as the winner, which I don't think would have happened if they didn't have the end planned. You know what I mean? But I do think that if this was a normal match, Gunther should have won. However, the match ends. CM Punk celebrates. He hasn't had a championship in 12 years. He's holding up the title. And within 2 minutes, Seth freaking Rollins comes out. And people are losing it. Fantastic the way Seth Rollins came out. Didn't even say anything. But we're all looking at him like, oh man, dang. Like, we thought he was going to cash in. Like, the music played and we're like, oh, Seth's going to cash in. But he comes out and he's on crutches. And you're like, oh, why is he here? And he's like, oh man, like, you better watch out. And he turns around and you're like, dang. Like, you like really start losing and like giving up hope that he's going to cash in. And then he freaking drops the crutches. And I lose it. And everyone else loses it. And he runs to the ring, hits CM Punk with the briefcase, pins him, 1, 2, 3. Seth Rollins, brand new champion. And I don't know how you could have a match more perfect. That was great. Like, no weapons, no flips, slow paced, basic ass submissions, but brutal, bloody, and unpredictable. And so for that reason, that match right there is a 10 out of 10. I don't have any other matches that's a 10 out of 10 on this entire list, but that one right there, 10 out of 10, 100%. And so that's my night one results, or my night one ranking, for lack of better words. Hit that like button. If you like the video, comment your rankings. I'd love to see what you think. Rank each one of them, all 6. And subscribe to the channel if you're not already. So catch you guys on the next one. Peace.